The Encanto's Daughter is a fantasy novel for young adult and older readers. It's about MJ Robertson Rodriguez, who has been hiding a secret. She's only half human, and heir to the throne of Biringan in a world unknown to humans. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Today, I'll talk with Melissa de la Cruz about The Encanto's Daughter. I requested and was provided with a copy of the book, but this video is not sponsored. Melissa de la Cruz is the internationally best-selling author of books for readers of all ages. Her previous novels include the Blue Blood series, Disney's Descendants novels, and the Witches of East End series, and many more. She joins us to talk about her new young adult novel, The Encanto's Daughter. Melissa, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Well, let's start with talking about the inspiration for this book and the Philippine folklore that you bring into play here. Are these stories that you grew up with, or did you have to research these stories?
Definitely grew up with them as a child. I grew up in the Philippines, and it was just common when I was growing up, and I kind of remembered it. It's kind of something that fades away because we moved to the United States when I was 13. But growing up, people, my parents or, our household kind of staff would say, be good or the duendes will get you. They'll take your things if you're not a good kid, finish your food, or the manananggal is out there. It was kind of this kind of vampiric like creature, who could suck the life out of you. So, I grew up kind of scared of these creatures.
So how much of the folklore were you able to incorporate into this novel? I mean, this is your own story, but you're bringing in these other elements.
Yeah, I did do some research about, what people thought of them. And I was like, oh, right. That's what I thought, so I just wanted to confirm that I was using, kind of the mythology correctly. And then I kind of created my own world around it because a few of the creatures were from several different parts of the Philippines, and I wanted to kind of bring them all together in one place, in like kind of this magical city of Biringan.
Tell us about this story. What's the plot here?
So the plot is there's an ordinary California girl, and she's always moved around with her mom. She doesn't know why, but they're always moving. And one day at school, these kind of frightening creatures appear, otherworldly people, and they kidnap her. And they say that, you got to come with us, because your father's dead. And in the process of going with them, these other creatures come who are even scarier. And it turns out, the people who are taking her are not who they seem to be. And the scary creatures are actually the ones who are on the good side. And it turns out that she's the daughter of, the Encanto, of the king of this mythical fairy land of Biringan. And now that he's dead, she's got to come and claim his crown and, be part of her heritage. So the story is about somebody who's kind of going into this portal fantasy of this fairyland and learning the ropes and learning how to be, the princess because she'll be queen one day. And also discovering, did her father die, naturally, or was it possibly, was he murdered?
For what age group is the book intended?
So it is a young adult book, and I would say about 14 and up.
So it falls into that young adult category.
Absolutely.
How would you describe this book? There's so much going on here. There's fantasy, there's action, there's mystery, there's romance even. So how would you describe this book to someone who's picking it up and you want to tell them this is what you can expect to find here?
I would say, if you like fantasy books and, particularly fairy books, I think Holly Black's The Cruel Prince series is a good reference. So basically, if you like, fantasy, action, romance, you'll like this book. And also, kind of a coming of age story about a girl, kind of discovering her place in the world. You'll like it.
So speaking of romance, tell us about Lucas.
So Lucas is a knight from another court. So there are, kind of four fairy courts, and he's in from, the court that MJ, who's the girl who finds out that she's, a princess of Biringan, they're kind of shady. She doesn't quite trust him, and he's friends with, kind of like the mean popular girl. so, but then they discover, an affinity for each other, not in the beginning, a little bit of an enemies to lovers, a little bit of a romantic trope there. And, he turns out to be, a really good, loyal friend who helps her in her quest. And it turns out his dad might have been murdered as well. So
I'm talking with Melissa de la Cruz about her latest young adult novel, The Encanto's Daughter, and our conversation continues in just a moment. If you're enjoying this discussion, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and click on the bell to be notified about future author interviews that I do here on Some Books Considered. And thank you. Well, tell us a little bit more about MJ, because, she really didn't fit in the, quote, normal world, our world, but yet she doesn't really fit, at least in the beginning, in this other world as well, because she has so much to learn and so much in terms of expectations to live up to.
Yeah, when I think about my books, Dan, a friend of mine said, because you're an immigrant, a lot of your books are about leaving a place and discovering a new place and your place in it. And I thought about that. I was like, oh, that's so weird. It's like, are all my stories immigration stories? But this is definitely an immigration story. So, and when you said that about her not belonging on, from either world, as I've, even grown up more, I've been in the United States for, over, I mean, maybe, almost 40 years now, but it's still like, where is my home? Where do I really come from? These questions, are still things that I wrestle with. So I think MJ, I gave her a lot of that feeling that I had. She never really fit in the normal world because she always had to move, but I think that a lot of teens always feel like that as well. That age is very, very, kind of like chaotic and volatile and moody, and they're just trying to all these things. So, I think MJ is thrust into this place, and she is kind of wondering if she can do it, because one of the things that she has to do is find out what her magic is. And she doesn't know what her power is. So she also spends the whole time kind of fretting about whether she'll ever find her power, and whether, she'll actually be accepted in it, and not only be accepted in this new world, but also, kind of become a leader in this world.
And to sort of help her along the way, there's Nix. Tell us about Nix.
So Nix is Phoenix Ning, who is from the Chinese kind of fairyland. In my imagination, Biringan is just one of the many, kind of mythological lands that are real in my book. So she's like, well, Avalon's real, and the Chinese fairyland is real. So Nix is running from her own troubles, and she's kind of hiding out in Biringan, but she's kind of fun. She's kind of the best friend that you meet, who's got a little bit of a smart mouth and a little bit of a fun edge, and she helps MJ in her quest.
Well, tell us a bit more about Biringan, because you had to create a whole world here. In fact, at the beginning of the book, there is a map of this world. So you have the geology here, all the different sort of cities or settlements that are in this country. So there's a lot of details for you to keep straight.
There are, and I had to remember, where's the Queen's Dock and the other dock, and, what are the mountains? So, it's a little bit based on my country, the Philippines. So there's like, it's always raining. We have a very wet season. And so I always laugh because one of the mountains is called the Paulanan Mountains, which means very rainy mountains. And I remember that from growing up there. So geographically, it's a little bit based on, the Philippines, of what I remember. and what would make sense, and it's a portal fantasy, so you can access it from anywhere. So even if MJ is in the United States, she goes through the magical portal and she's there.
As we mentioned, this is a young adult novel, but do you find with your young adult novels that you also have adults who read them as well?
Yeah, young adult now, I feel is part of an adult genre, with grown-ups really kind of enjoying the faster pace of storytelling, kind of weaving in myth and romance. Like you said, there's romance, there's fantasy, it's a thriller. So I feel like it's a genre that's a very readable, entertaining genre. So that's why adults are drawn to it.
Now, this book is, well, I won't give away any spoilers, but I'll just say that it ends on a cliffhanger. But that's okay because there's another book on the way. What can you tell us about it?
I just turned it in yesterday, so I'm very tired, but very excited. So we learn a little bit more about where Phoenix comes from and where Amador, who's the antagonist, why she acts the way she does. And, if Lucas and MJ will actually be able to be together. So there's a few more, there's kind of like a love quadrangle happening. So few more new characters.
Melissa, there's a question I like to ask authors of fiction, and it's this. If you could spend a day in real life with one of the characters from your novel, who would it be and why?
I think I really like hanging out with Nyx. I think Nyx and I would go shopping. She's kind of a fun person to hang out with. We'd go get, dumplings and go shopping, which is one of the things that they do in the book.
Well, you said you just turned in the next book in this series, this, two-book series. What's next for you now?
So I have, we haven't announced the title yet, but I have an adult fantasy, capital A adult, not young adult. And I haven't written a fantasy book for grownups in almost, I would say, over a decade. So I wrote Witches of East End, about 10 or more years ago. And now I'm returning back to fantasy. It's a full fantasy, full second world. It's not in our world at all. It's a whole different world. And I'm very excited about it. It's a big romantasy.
And again, this book is The Encanto's Daughter by Melissa de la Cruz. Melissa, thank you for talking with me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan.
If you'd like to purchase The Encanto's Daughter, I've placed a link for you in the description below. And if you'd like to see more videos about books and their authors on a wide variety of topics, be sure to subscribe, like, and click on the bell to be notified about future programs. I'm Dan Scunner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.